Hey guys, you are watching the first episode of Two Girls, One Mic. I'm Arooba,
I'm Hiba.
and we actually came up with the idea for this podcast sitting in a room talking about the topic that we want to talk about today,
Yeah.
relationships.
The entire podcast idea came from the one conversation we had, and we're kind of just
here to talk about that today. So
we're teasing it, but we're not really saying anything.
Yeah. So Hiba actually here, she actually, oh shit, that is not right. So Hiba actually here, she is actually in a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, going on like, what, 4 years?
Yeah, 5 years soon.
And
what's crazy is I'm dating her brother, so it's like a very
it's
not
a very
in relationship that we have too, just because it's linked with two people. Like I've known Arooba since grade 9, and I've dated her brother since grade 10.
Yeah. So, and now we like all spend like every single day together.
Just about, yeah.
So, yeah. It was like really natural to think about like the first person I want to do a podcast with. Oh, Hiba.
Whenever we have like a conversation, it flows really easily. So it's never like we force it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we bounce off of each other and we both find ourselves on the opposite side of the spectrum. But that always opens up conversation, which is why we kind of thought we would be two people that are compatible enough to do a podcast together. Yeah. Just because we're not constantly kissing each other's ass and going like, yeah, you're right, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We want to learn and we want to teach at the same time.
Yeah, and like the thing is we can always find a common ground, right? Like at the end of the day, we come to the oh, you're right, and here's what I've learned from you, but here's where I think that my perspective also matters.
Like we bring our opinions to the table, but at the same time, we take what we need to take from it, and we respect each other's opinion enough. But also, we know where we stand.
Yeah, and you know what's so important? I feel like after conversations that can be very like emotionally triggering, it's important to still resume that relationship where you can step away from that conversation and be like, you know, I heard you and I left the conversation at the table, and I can walk away from it and still continue our relationship as two people outside of that conversation.
That's just maturity right there. Yeah.
And I feel like we're definitely going to end up making a podcast about how our generation is really bad at doing that.
Yeah.
But for today, it's about relationships. I wanted to start off by talking about maybe our worst experience in a relationship.
You start off, bro. It's all you.
For me, I think relationships are so complicated. A little bit of background on me. I've been in, like, I'm the type of person who really loves long-term relationships. Like, it's never just like a fling for me. I'm not the type of person that can open up to just anybody. And it's totally cool if you can. Yeah. That's just not my, like
we're not dissing anyone. Whatever you do, you do you. But what you do is you do long-term relationships.
Exactly.
Because everyone has, like, a different need, right?
Right. So for me, it's like I can't get comfortable with somebody unless I know that they're looking for that same like long-term companionship that I am. So I've been and like it's kind of like a paradox because I love long-term relationships, but at the same time, I'm the type of person who can also step away from a relationship when I realize it's not serving me. I feel like I do give a lot, like I'm the giver in the relationship. But I'll reach a point where it's like,
I need to take
that. Like, I'll be like, okay, I'm out of energy. I feel like I've tried everything with this person and I'm giving up. And you know what? People view giving up in a bad light. Like, they're like, oh, people
You're not willing to make it work.
Right. Like, people in our generation are like, oh, we give up so easily on things, but I feel like it's good that we've normalized something like stepping away when it's affecting you, right?
Yeah. There needs to be like a level of compromise. Like there's a difference between compromising something and just completely giving something your all and not having anything in return. Yeah. Because I feel like in today's generation, we're so quick in getting into relationships and we're so quick on getting over people that we never really process it until later on in life. And that just leaves a lot of baggage to carry into each relationship because you can't just jump from relationship to relationship and then expect it to be fine. because I can say that the first relationship had an impact on me that I still carry to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And the only difference is I actually want to deal with it.
Right.
Whereas if I say my friends or my younger siblings, they wouldn't want to do that. They just kind of be like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to move forward.
Right.
And yeah, moving forward is great. But moving forward after dealing with your shit is better than just being like, I need to move on.
Right. Like I saw a tweet the other day that was like, if you are healing, you shouldn't be dating people. Like, because dating people is like you're projecting your trauma onto them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're healing, you should be stepping away to do that inner work on yourself, right? And so my first bad experience in a relationship was a relationship with a narcissistic person. And this was like a real narcissist. This person was just not ever willing to listen to anybody else. They were always right. And you know what? I wholeheartedly believe that there's some people in this world that bring out the worst in you. And so when you're around somebody like that who's just draining all of the energy out of you, you almost become somebody you don't recognize.
You begin to let go of the things that you actually are.
Right.
And you're not you at that point. And
because to deal with a situation like that, your patience, right? Like you feel like you're almost losing that patience, and you're saying hurtful things back because you don't know how else to cope.
Exactly. Especially with like narcissistic people, I've noticed that the only way to ground them is by attacking them.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, they're so up in the clouds and they're so full of themselves that they're just like, you're just jealous of me.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's like, no, this is a wake-up call. You need to get yourself, like, you need to just figure your shit out right now.
And actually, through that relationship, Hiba was like witnessing that too, right? And it's really hard to, because me and Hiba, like, the fact that our relationship with each other and our relationship with my family and her family is so like interconnected that we see each other in situations
that we
like
don't necessarily agree with.
Exactly. So how do you deal with going to somebody and being like, hey, I don't think this relationship is right for you,
without them
without them being like and that was my problem. Like I'm such a giver in a relationship that it's like, even if I see a problem, I'm willing to completely overlook it. Exactly. And just like have my like head in the clouds at the same like pace as the other person. So if that person is up here, like I'm willing to mimic that just to like make sure that the playing field is equal. Yeah. And me, like personally, me before was a person that wasn't in love with anybody. It was more like I was in love with the idea of being in love. And so I was willing to just literally go through hell to be in love and to have somebody.
And I feel like with the age, because age matters a lot too, right. Because you're obviously not fully grown and you can't really grasp some things until a certain age.
Right.
So we're still, what I've noticed is I got into a relationship really early. Mm-hmm. I was 15 years old and I was in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I was just not ready. I had to grow on my own. And when you're 15, you're still learning yourself and you're still learning personality traits and you're still growing on your own. Mm-hmm. And when you have a person who's not good for you there, they teach you things that are not right for you or that turn you into a bad person. Just because relationships aren't perfect. And I'm not saying that you're never supposed to fight and you're never supposed to argue, but there's a line. Mm-hmm. There's a line between a toxic relationship and a relationship that just has fights.
Right.
And if you're constantly fighting with this person and you have to fight for everything, then at one point that just becomes who you are. So if someone says something to you, because I know I still do this, like to this day, if someone says something to me, I'll take it as a personal attack. Just because I'll feel like you know how your entire body is just like, I need to protect myself at this point? So anyone will say something and I'll be like, I don't want to hear it because I don't want to hear anyone say anything about me because I don't deserve that.
Right.
But in reality, that person is trying, like, it's constructive criticism.
Right.
We're like, I'm so used to hearing horrible things that my body just automatically goes, no, this person hates you.
Yeah. And the thing that I've read about conflict is that in relationships, conflict is actually good for you. It gives you the insight on how to better serve your partner, right? So if you go through a conflict with your partner, you come out of it, and it's not just about the conflict when it happens, it's about how you deal with the conflict afterwards. So the difference between a healthy relationship is when you're in the conflict, you're still respecting each other, you're still speaking kindly to each other, right? And when you come out of that conflict, you're like, now I better understand what your perspective is, and you better understand what my perspective is, and now I'm willing to compromise to get to a place where we can both be happy.
But all fights don't happen like that at the same time. Because like there is advice that you can take, but not every advice applies to your scenario, because every single person is different, every single personality is different, and it depends on the ages you're dating at. Because obviously when you're older and when you're dating someone who's older, it just everything falls into place a little easier, just because one person has experienced life to the point where they know how to respect someone. Whereas when you're younger, you have so much energy and so much, and it's not good energy. It's like it's like this energy that kind of just, it's a chameleon energy, right? So whatever you feel is going on, that's how you just put it out into the universe. You become like you. Yeah, I forgot what I was saying.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, at our age, we're not busy. Like, we're looking for a relationship with, honestly, anybody who shows the first sign of interest with us, anybody who shows the first sign of similarity and compatibility. And it's like, hey, I like to play volleyball. Do you like to play volleyball? Let's date. You know? And
then you find common ground based on just that.
Yeah.
Then you try to expand the relationship and you carry it into your mid-20s.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize, hey, maybe this person is not right for me.
Like, you hit that age and you're like, okay. I mean, yeah, we like to play volleyball, but what's outside of that? Now I'm in like my late 25s. I'm not playing volleyball anymore. No. So what do you and I have in common?
And then at that point, you've been together for so long. Like, some people consider quantity to be a big thing.
Yeah.
So you've been together for so long that you're like, hey, I need to make this work.
Yeah.
And then you force a relationship that was never meant to be in the first place. And now you're stuck with a relationship that you've been in for
God knows how long.
Exactly. And you're just stuck. And you've never received the amount of love you deserved. And you've never given that amount of love.
Yeah.
Because you can be in a relationship with someone, respect them. That's how most brown relationships are.
Right.
Like, our parents got arranged marriages or whatever, and they didn't know each other.
No.
Maybe they don't even love each other.
Yeah.
Some parents don't.
No.
And they just respect each other enough to be together. But in this day and age, love is a very important thing, I find, especially with like everything that goes on around you and so much negativity, especially like from kids. You need someone who is able to match with you on the same compatibility level. Right. Like, your mindsets have to be similar to the sense where you know how you're going to raise your kids, or where you know how you're going to live your life, or where you know what your goals are. Yeah. Because some people are work driven, whereas some people are love driven. And there's nothing wrong with either or. It's just priorities vary from person to person. Right. And you never want to settle. That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah. You always deserve a lot more than you think when you're in a relationship. Yeah,
and the thing is that relationships before our generation, right? So let's talk like our parents' generation. I don't know. I think they're like millennials, Gen whatever.
I don't think they're millennials.
Okay, they're a little older than that. They come after the boomers. They come after the baby
after
boomer.
the boomers.
Yeah, whatever that generation
Boomer
is.
plus 20.
Yeah. So their concept of dating was going out to dinner with the person, going to the movies with the person, right? Going outside to do some activity together, get to know each other. And then the relationship comes, only if you actually want to pursue a relationship after the first few dates.
Even then, there was like, they had the class thing. Yeah. Right? Where you were like, you have to marry in your class. Right. Men didn't want to marry people poorer than them. Women wanted to marry richer. And then richer wanted to stay rich. Right. Like, they didn't want to marry someone beneath their class.
And ethnicity was a big deal.
Still is.
It still is. And so, it's like, But my main point is that they would actually, like, look at all of these factors before they considered themselves to be a boyfriend or girlfriend,
But now there's an online relationship.
Yeah, and now there's like a talking stage, and it's just like, I don't know if I'm in a relationship with you actually because we never discussed that.
Exactly.
And so people get their hearts broken, or people just go on one date and call the other person their like boyfriend or their girlfriend, and it's like you don't know where it ends, and you don't know where it
started.
Yeah. So the confusion that comes from that is, and the lack of like, trust that we have nowadays, the lack of communication we have nowadays, it's all like plays a huge factor in how relationships are turning out.
Exactly.
So normalizing divorce is like a topic that we briefly touched. Yeah, we briefly touched that in the beginning as well.
Yeah.
But my my experience with anything relating to marriage, because obviously I haven't been married, so any of my views on marriage come from the relationship I've seen my parents have and my immediate family have. And a concern that's always come up, especially in South Asian households, is that divorce is
frowned upon.
Right. It's basically like a taboo thing. Like,
Yeah.
you don't do it. A lot of compromise, especially I find on the woman's part in the relationship.
What I find crazy is with divorce, normally if you hear of someone's divorce, no matter what they went through in the like marriage, it's always pinned on the wife.
Yeah.
So it's always like either it's always her fault that the marriage didn't work, or it's because of her the marriage didn't work.
Right.
So no one really blames the men in the relationship because the men are supposed to just go out and earn income, and the women are supposed to keep the house together.
Right.
Whereas in reality, that's not how it works anymore.
Yeah.
It's like it has to be even nowadays,
Right.
because you can't just expect one person to be doing everything. And especially like in Western countries, both parents typically work.
You have to. Like, there's literally no other option.
Yeah, like you have to break down the burden, and one person can't just handle taking care of like all the kids or raising all the kids.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can only teach them so much. Most kids pick up from their parents' habits.
Right.
So subconsciously, they're learning what their parents are consciously doing.
Right.
And their parents are surprised when those kids replicate exactly those behaviors.
Yeah.
And they can't stand it.
Yeah.
But where does it come from? Which is a conversation they're not ready to have.
Right.
So you're like, normalizing divorce is something that's very tricky, especially in our community. It's, how do I say this? It's just something that people need to get over.
Yeah.
Because it's not good for the generation we're raising.
Yeah.
Because an unhealthy relationship is worse than no relationship.
Yeah. Like, for me, it's always, would you rather be in an unhealthy relationship and give your kids a tainted view of what love looks like, or go your separate ways, but show your kids that you can still have a healthy relationship with a person even if you are no longer together? And that's what I feel like South Asian parents are okay at doing, that where even if the love doesn't exist in the relationship, they can respect each other enough to like
raise their kids.
Yeah, to raise their kids and coexist.
But then at the same time, there's some families that try to do that, but then they have their breaking points constantly, where everything just hits the fan.
Right. And
that's not okay.
No. Because for me, like, my experience with marriage is always, and like the thing with women, even though we do have the breaking apart of the roles now, where the woman does go out to work, so does the man. But at the end of the day, like, my opinion, and this is my opinion, this is what I see, I don't know if other people see this, but at the end of the day, I still find most of the responsibility to raise the kids falls on the woman.
Exactly.
Even if she works, even if she is outside of the house most of the time, it still falls on the woman. She's emotionally available to support the kid, whereas I find dads, even if they are at home, aren't emotionally available most of the time.
Like, it's something that you have to start early on. You need to have a strong relationship with your child so that they can bring things to you, which I feel like we can easily do with moms, just because we see them all the time, and just because they come off with like very motherly touch, and you're just like, you can trust this person just because you've seen, and she stood up for you countless times. With dads, it's always like there's always that awkwardness in it, and they don't mean to do it. It's just, it's my experience. Like, I love my dad, and it's just one of those things where it's like, what can I tell you and what can't I tell you? Especially being a daughter, I feel like he's very possessive. Right. So even like the thought of like me having external relationships like outside of the house is something he'd freak out about. Yeah. But that's not okay, because then I can't talk to him about half of my life. Exactly. Because it's our view on relationships, what we expect out of relationships is always based on the relationship we have with our parents, which is why like you hear a lot about daddy issues or mommy issues, right? Like if your dad was emotionally unavailable to you throughout your childhood, you find yourself chasing after men that are emotionally unavailable to you in adult life, right? And that's a thing I've experienced. I'm pretty sure I've experienced that. I think most women have experienced that. And you know, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, can I consciously reflect back on my childhood, find where the trauma comes from and heal it and then move forward? Like, can I figure out where things went wrong in my relationship with my parents to be able to say, okay, this went wrong and now I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to make sure that this trigger doesn't come up in my relationship in my adult life. A lot of people can't do that. Like, even I feel like I can't, like, you need to go back to the exact moment where you figured it all went south. And I don't think I can do that. I don't know when exactly I started to kind of go off rail and kind of like look towards these things. But at the same time, like, it's not like I don't want to. It's just, I don't know how to. Right. It's really a sign of like wisdom and maturity when you can look back at your childhood and be like, okay, like I'm willing to consciously reflect on these things. I'm willing to consciously work on my inner self. And yeah, like it's difficult. It's a process. Healing is definitely a process. It comes up in all aspects. It's not just relationships that are intimate, it's relationships that are platonic. You could be intimidated by your friends even, right? Afraid to ask them for things, or afraid to see how they'll react if you act emotionally to them, or if you ask for more emotional energy from them, right? It's relationships is a lot more of a broader topic than we make it out to be. Yeah, because there's like our future relationships, our relationship in our marriage, technically it's a reflection of how we saw our parents or things that we saw in society, and things like Instagram marriages, where it's like we see the perfect side of a marriage, or we see that everyone has a few kids and they have a nice house and they have nice cars and they're happy and they have lots of money. But in reality, that's only like a few, like not even a few. You can count those people on your hands, and out of those people, there's only a few that are actually living that life. Most of these things are staged, which we can all agree with. But at the same time, it does have an impact on the type of goals that we have nowadays. Right. Like if you look at relationship advice Instagrams, it's normally, oh, I want a husband, kids, money. That's all I want. Right. And that's all the conversation reflects around. When in reality, you have to look into yourself first and be like, this is what I want for myself. And then you find another person who's heading the same way that you are. Because otherwise you can head in two completely different directions. Right. And you never want to do that. Right. Because that's exactly where our parents went wrong. They didn't have that level of communication. They could still communicate. I'm not saying they didn't know how to communicate. They just didn't know where the conversation actually lied. But now that it has a lot to do with like the things that we're more aware of. We study psychology a lot more than our parents did. We look into patterns, behaviors, and we are calling people out on their shit basically. So now we know more. Right. But what are we doing with that information? When we're still completely blinded. It's the conversation, right? Like what you and I are doing, are having that conversation where we're willing to talk about it. Back in our parents' day and age, it was like, it was one of those things that you just kept hidden. Like if your family is falling apart, you don't want to tell other people because you're afraid they're going to laugh at you. Right. But in reality, sharing it with someone helps you find a solution easily. Like you don't have to take someone's solution, but it can guide you to the right path and guide you to where you want to go.
Yeah. Especially for men in relationships. And way back then, it was like, you cannot be mistreated. You're the man. And yeah, that basically you're the man. So
it's your throne.
Yeah. So
you're the king of the house.
If you have any emotions towards your relationship, suppress them, right? Like, you have to make things work. Mm-hmm. So even now to this day, I feel like we think men can't fall apart. Men have to hold everything together. Mm-hmm. Men cannot cry. Men cannot express any like grief in a relationship, right? It's like the man holds the family together. And that's also a topic that people don't talk about. It's like, what about the man's mental health in a relationship?
But that has a lot to do with like the masculinity that comes into power. Men want the power, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with the power. Mm-hmm. So when you are being a giver, you just keep giving and giving and giving, and your wife becomes accustomed to that, and she becomes a taker, and your kids become accustomed to that, and they become takers. And then there's going to be a point where you're like, hey, I've had enough. I need to take now. Mm-hmm. But at that point, sometimes it's too late. And it's like nobody's really willing to
It's give. Like you've conditioned your environment for so long that the environment now cannot change, or is resistance to change, right? And the thing with Instagram marriages, I wanted to go back to that. It's a question about, where do our values lie now in society, right? Like, do we want the big house? Do we want the happiness? Like, I feel like we're constantly chasing that high. We're constantly chasing that happiness of that we see on social media of couples, right? But I always say happiness comes in waves in real life. Like, it's not a constant thing. It's more like it fluctuates. So there's never going to be moments where you're happy, but it's not a constant thing. It's not like happy. Exactly. It's like happy, okay, something has happened. I have to be emotionally there for my partner now. Okay, happy. Something has happened to my partner, and I have to be emotionally there for them now, right? You know, it's not like just like a constant, here's a post, another post about my house, my family, my kids. We're all happy all the time.
But it's easy, like, it's easily it's easier to have a conversation about this and like think of it in an application sense. But in reality, when you're applying this, it's harder. Yeah. Like, it's harder to be like, hey, I'm going to have hard moments and I'm going to go through a lot. When do you realize that you've had enough? When do you realize that you have to walk away now? And when you do walk away, why does society have to spit on you?
Yeah. It's all about balance, right? Like, there's a point where you have to realize you're consistently in a bad situation. There's consistently bad moments. Like, I don't say don't ever compromise for your partner. You know, like there's tweets that will be like, or the people will say, you know, you should never take shit from people. Like, if they're not making you happy, walk away, right?
There's culture that just says cut these people off.
Yeah, just cut these people off. There's a big culture.
They do one thing wrong, and you're like, cut them off.
Yeah, goodbye.
No, that's not how it works. No, you're gonna cut every single person out of your life.
Exactly. It's like, you can't constantly cut off friends. No. You can't constantly cut off partners. No. You can't constantly cut off family members. There's a point where you have to be like, maybe I'm the problem if I'm cutting off this many
Eventually,
people.
You'll end up isolating yourself.
Exactly. So it's about the balance, right? It's about okay, what can I deal with and what can I absolutely not deal with?
Yeah.
And that raises another question, right? Is love and happiness enough in a relationship? Is the passion enough? Is the attractiveness enough? And is that like, you know, I'm passionate about my partner, I'll do anything for them. Because some people say the only time I'll ever break up with my partner is if they cheat on me. But are there other things you can do in a relationship that can cause your partner to walk away from you?
Yeah, there are multiple things you can do. It just ultimately comes down, every single person has a different definition of love. Every single person has a different expectation from love.
Yeah.
So you can't really have a set, like, there's no book of rules that you can follow for love. Or for, like, you can't take specific advice and apply it to your relationship. Something that I believe strongly, like, you'll see advice and you'll see a moment that is the exact same as your relationship, and they'll give advice, but in reality, you can only learn so much from it. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily apply the entire thing. Love, it's not just a feeling.
No.
People consider just being in love, like when you're 16, you're you're stupid.
Yeah.
And you think that you're in love, and
your
you think
hormones
you're gonna,
all over the place.
You're not gonna, like, the chances of you ending up with this person are very, very, very low.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's an innocent kind of love. But then when you grow up, there's other factors that you have to put into it. So if you're still with someone who you met at 16, you don't really put the practicality, the compassion, like, you don't take in all the factors. Yeah. But when you're 20, 22, you have to think about your life ahead of you. Yeah. Everyone has a different goal. There are some people that just want to marry someone that's a lot more stable than them. Yeah. Some people want to marry older guys. Some people want someone that's just going to be emotionally constantly available for them. A support system, basically. And you never really know until you've grown up. Yeah. So I'm kind of against, like, young lovers starting lives together because of that reason, just because I feel like you never remain in the same place. And another thing that's important about that is the level of growth. Yeah. You've grown up together. Yeah. Are you one person now, or have you maintained your individuality? Because if you maintain your individuality, you can still have a healthy marriage. Right. But if you're just meshed up to be one person, you're still in the honeymoon phase. Yeah. You're not practically ready for this, and it's not, like, you need to be realistic at this point, and you need to step back and actually, I forgot the word. What's that word when you, like, oh my god, when you,
what are you trying to say?
When you, I forgot the word. It's a basic word. When you
step back and reflect.
Yeah, that's a simple word. When you, like, step back and reflect on the relationship. Yeah. That's only when you can gain perspective. Yeah.
For me, it's like, to be in love with a person and to love a person are two different things. And I think to be in love with a person, it is absolutely important to make a relationship a long-lasting relationship, because to be in love with a person is like, you know what, I will work this out for you. Like I'm willing to work out for you. Like, I'm willing to, you know, like, listen to you and be kind to you through all the different phases in our life. And to be in love with a person, it's more than an emotion. It's when you're actually good for each other. It's when you realize there's this soul connection. Yeah, chemistry, soul connection that doesn't, I think falter is the word for it. It's like, it doesn't go away. To love people, you can love people, and at the end of the day, like, be like, you know, I love you and I respect you. But if I'm not in love with you, I'm not willing to work on things with you.
But for, like, what I think you might agree, it's not the only thing that matters. Yeah. Being in love can only take you so far.
Right. So that's where it ends, though, right? So that's where the being in love with somebody, it's good, and that's where you have to build on that, right? So if I see somebody and after a year I'm like, you know, I'm still in love with you, like, that's something that never went away. Now it's about, like, how do we work together in our future? Like, what does our future together look like? Exactly. Are you on the same stream as me? Do you want kids? Do you not want kids? Are you willing to travel, or are you willing to stay in the same place? You know,
do you want to move in? Yeah. Do you want a separate house? Do you want to live in a house? Do you want to live in an apartment? There's, like, multiple things.
There's so many.
There's small things. Yeah. Like, are you vegan?
Yeah. Like, it's the little things that are like, are we gonna adjust, or are we just gonna be like, no, I absolutely cannot do this? Because for me, one thing is, like, I want kids. So if my partner doesn't want kids, like, that's a huge deal.
He has to be a family man.
Exactly. Like, for me, it's like, having a family is even more important than a career for me, which is a separate topic. I know women are like, nowadays are like, no, you have to have a career, whatever. Like, for me, that's like, a family is like a must. I want a family. I want to raise a family. Like, that's my thing. So if you can't do that for me, then I don't know if I want a future with you. Even if I'm in love with you, even if I'm, like, totally passionate about who you are as a person. Because as much as it is about how you feel about that person, it's also about how you feel about your future together.
Exactly. Like, realistically speaking, you can be in love with someone, end up with them, have clashes about these things, and they can become unattractive over time just because they can't give you the one thing that you need. Because every single person, at the end of the day, it breaks down to that one thing that they can absolutely not live without.
Yeah.
And we all have that, and we all don't know what it is at this age.
Yeah.
Once we grow older, we all can, it's like a center, right? Yeah. And we all revolve our decisions around it.
Yeah.
Unconsciously.
Yeah.
And then eventually, when you get married, you dig deep and you find out what that thing is. And if that person can't provide that for you, how do you stay with them?
Right. Marriage is a scary thing, dude. Like, I think one of my biggest fears in life
is getting married and falling out of love.
Yeah, is getting married and falling out of love, or getting married and realizing I married the wrong person. And you know, like, that's where it's kind of like my maturity has to step in and be like, there is no wrong person. Technically, everybody that you've met in your life is a lesson for you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to invest all of this time in a person and then later on be like, oh my God, like, we don't connect anymore, you know?
It's like one of those things. It's really shaky. Like, there's nothing reliable about a relationship. Even a relationship with your parents, there's no reliability. No. Even though parents like to say that they will go to the ends of the earth, and they might, but some parents don't.
No.
And that's the truth. Yeah. Some parents want to see you on your own and want to see you grow on your own. Yeah. They don't want to hold your hand through life, which is fair. Yeah. Everyone has their own parenting techniques. So there's nothing that you can really be like, this is a sure thing.
Yeah.
Because the only sure thing is that you are bound to change.
Yeah.
You're not going to remain the same.
No. That's the only thing that really is guaranteed to us. It's our constant evolution in life. Yeah. It's the constant, like, because and I think you mentioned this a little bit, our individuality, right? So outside of our marriage, we are perceiving, or outside of our relationship with anybody, right?
We're still interacting.
We're still interacting with the world in our very own unique way, which is absolutely different than our partners, right? So it's like, we're still interacting with the world. We're still taking in new information. We're still evolving every second of every day.
And perspective matters.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not reliable. It's not like your partner won't walk out of the door and see somebody else and be like, exactly, like, I want that. I like your mentality better than what I have, right? So then it comes down to where love is not a feeling anymore. It's a choice, right? It's a choice to come home and be like, I choose to love you every day because we went through this shit together, you know? Like,
there's always that one thing that holds you bound to that person. It's fair, but it's not fair at the same time.
Like, we evolve all the time, right? So, like, the whole thing about the yes man, like, you don't want a yes man. You want somebody who's going to support you through your journey, and let you know when you're in the wrong, and then support you when you're in the right. And, like, you, for example, like, how much do you think you've changed? It's not a bad thing. How much do you think you've changed in the 4 years that you've been in a relationship?
I think, like, I changed, and then I referred it back to certain things. Because when you're changing, you have to adjust other things accordingly. But then at one point, you can go back to certain traits because they were never bad. Yeah. So I feel like there's always been adjusting, and there's always been minor changes. It's never been something that I've completely had to change about myself, just because I'm the kind of believer, I'm a believer of, I don't want to change myself to the point where I can't recognize myself. I still want to be me. And I still think that you can grow and be a better person while still being in touch with yourself. I don't want to change to the point where that person can't recognize who or what they actually fell in love with.
Right. And, like, because I know about your personal situation, when you went into the relationship that you're in right now, you were still at a point where you were healing yourself. How important was it for you to have a partner who was willing to be patient with you and, you know, be there for you through that healing process?
In the moment, I didn't realize how much I took. I thought I had healed, and I thought I was ready to move on. But like any other relationship goes, any other toxic relationship goes, when you step out of that boundary, the person who is harming you will always step in and try to, like, gain control of you again and try to put you in that situation again, because to them, that is love. I don't blame anyone for putting me through anything, really, because I chose to go through whatever I did. But at the same time, it was at the point where I had to just walk away from it. And walking away was a process of 2 years. So even after walking away, I had another 2 years of just constantly going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which wasn't good for me or my relationship. But it helped me realize now how much this person is willing to give to me, how much this person has done for me, and it holds a different level of respect for me. Like, I respect this person so much because they've done so much for me. And even when they mess up, I feel like I still can't hold him accountable for it just because he's done a lot more for me than I have for him.
Right. So it's about holding the same amount of patience for that person. That person is behind the camera and
currently dancing.
Yeah. So I think he liked hearing good things about himself.
I don't say
but
a
yeah.
lot, so.
Yeah, she doesn't do that often. So yeah, it's about holding the same amount of space and patience for the person that you've received from them.
But it's different for every person. Like, if I didn't deserve that. Like, if I'm completely honest, I was not a good person when I started this relationship just because I was so unstable, not just emotionally, but in like every sense of the word. I wasn't confident in myself, which was also an underlying factor to me constantly bouncing back and forth between two people. There was just a lot that went into it, which had to do with me and what I had gone through in that relationship, because that relationship itself was also 3-ish years. Okay, so that's a long time too. And when you come out of it, you don't really know when you're done.
Yeah.
Because you break up in between. And then you're just like, hey, maybe this is just another one of those breakups.
Yeah.
But I was the one to pull the trigger on it because I was like, I can't do this anymore and I don't deserve this. I want better and I'm going on a different path than you. Right. And this is the part where I have to say goodbye to you because you are not headed to the same place as me and you are not doing me any good. Okay. It has a lot to do with how we raise our men and how we raise our boys to become men. This person had an ego so big and it was just not helpful at all because when I stepped out of that relationship, I developed that ego and I was like, I deserve all this. Everything was about me. Yeah. But in reality, not every person is that person. I don't need to treat someone else like shit because someone treated me like shit. But when I got into a relationship, that was my perspective. I was like, one brown guy treated me like shit, so I'm going to treat another brown guy like shit and get even. Yeah. That's pathetic and that's immature, and I could have handled that a lot better. Yeah. But I was 15. Yeah. So you don't really know what you're doing at that point. And I feel like there was so much that I shouldn't have done and that I could have done better. I'm glad I am where I am today because I've grown so much in the past 4 years and I'm still growing. I'm not perfect. I will never be perfect. There's always going to be other things about me that I can fix because I'm willing to change for people. I don't want someone I have this thing where I don't want people to hate me. So I'll adjust myself a lot. Yeah. So I don't really have a fixed personality around anyone. It'll always
fluctuate. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's not good. Because that just means I'm not confident.
That's that chameleon thing, right?
Exactly. Like, I'm not confident in who I am, so I have to change it around different people just to please those people. Yeah. But that's not good. But at the same time, it's also good because that helps your people skill. Right. It's just about balance, like you said. Yeah,
it helps people be comfortable around you.
Exactly.
Which is part of the giver personality. I have the same thing where it's like around other people, I'll change my personality to fit their comfortability level. Even though I know nobody will ever do that back for me. Exactly. But going back to your relationship, I wanted to mention, like, we do have a culture right now where it's like, you don't have to help people heal. You can just move on from them because nobody is worth, like, your mental health, right?
I don't want to do that.
Right, which is like, okay, I get that. Like, I mean, your mental health can be damaged in the process of helping other people, but like, if you truly believe in somebody, I'm not talking about your toxic part of the relationship where if somebody's abusing you and their ego is getting in the way, cut that shit off. Goodbye. But in a loving, caring relationship like you have with your like current partner, was it helpful to you that they always showed up with the mentality of helping you through the healing, right?
Yes and no. Just because I needed it. No, because I didn't know I needed it.
Right.
So I'm still it's been 4 years. But I'm still learning how to take help from other people, just because during my past relationship I constantly had to figure everything out on my own because my opinion and my emotions were irrelevant.
Right.
How I felt, like, this person did not mean for it to seem like that, but it was just unhealthy to the point where I felt like I could not say anything. Yeah. But in this relationship, I have a platform where I can kind of open up and kind of speak about everything and kind of just let out, like, vent, basically. But I don't know how to use it. And when someone gives me a solution, I don't know, but my brain is wired in a way where it's just like, oh, so you think that's the only problem, or you think that's how I need to fix it, and I don't want you to tell me how to fix it. I want you to just listen to me. Yeah, and that's not right, because you're having a conversation with a person, so you can expect some, like, they're gonna have their own input.
Yeah, because that's that ego, right? Exactly. That's that ego playing in again.
And that's just like, I don't want you to say anything about me. I want you to tell me that everything is fine the way it is. But in reality, it's not fine the way it is. You need someone to tell you, hey, you need to fix this. Yeah. I don't know how to deal with that. And I'm still learning to deal with that. And there are times when I'm just like I break down and I'm like, I can't do this right now. I need a break. Which is another bad thing, where it's like, I'm so unstable still that I will constantly break up with this person for no reason at all. I see a little bit of resistance, or I see a little bit of fluctuation in the relationship or the emotions or in the person's behavior. So if someone is not being the way they usually are, I immediately think I did something, it's my fault, and I need to walk away because I'm not good for this person.
You know what? I actually think that, we've never talked about this, but I actually think that you and I might have the same personality type. Because there's the Myers-Briggs, I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but the Myers-Briggs personality, there's like 16 personalities. And you take like a quiz and it tells you the type of personality you have. And the problem that, it's like the exact same problem that I have is, when my partner is upset, I take that personally. And so it affects me in a way, it's like, I constantly have to be like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Yeah, like you're constantly on defense, right? It's like, are you okay? Is there something wrong in the relationship? And so,
me? And it's always, is it me?
Yeah, and then you smother your partner to the point where they're just like, can you leave me alone, please? Like,
I don't need you right now.
And so,
like, not everything is as serious as you're making it. Right. And it's like,
so that's where I have to learn that my ego isn't always right. There's nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing to take personal all the time. And that my partner has the right to ask for space, right? Because sometimes I need it. Sometimes I need space. So if my partner asks me for space, if I just give them the space without smothering them, then they can work it out, and I can have trust and faith that they'll come to me when they're ready.
Yeah. I feel like the reason why that happens is because the level of trauma that we've both experienced from our past relationship is very similar. Right. Not the same, but very similar from how we took it and how we just put up with it. Yeah. And the way we are in our relationships now reflects on all of that. Yeah. So we're not really, you can't really heal. There's no time limit on when you heal from these things. Everyone feels, heals, does everything at a different pace. And that's fair. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, how? Yeah. Like, when are you going to just be better? And when are you not going to reflect your insecurities on someone that had nothing to do with what you went through?
Yeah. Well, I feel like we never, ever, ever leave behind the people that we've had relationships with, or we've had friendships with, or some kind of like,
interaction with.
Yeah, like interaction, close bond. We're like a blueprint. So those people are like the marks on us, right? And they leave those marks on us. And so what do we do with them? Do we let them take over, and do we just become a blueprint of those marks? Or do we take control over them? Do we rewrite them? Do we, decide that we're going to carry these people with us, but we're going to carry them as healed parts of us, as parts that we're learning from, as parts that we have learned from. And that's the most beautiful thing about relationships or any kind of interaction you have with another human being, that it is always a lesson for you to evolve. Yeah. It is always a calling for you to reach your higher potential. It's always a calling for you to reach that part of you that you probably never saw before. So that's the only way to get through it. You'll never forget these people. They're part of your memory. You can't erase it. You just have to live with it, and you have to live with it as gracefully as you can.
Which is why, I feel like it's important before you even get into a relationship with someone, you need to know what type of person they are.
Yeah.
Because most of my relationships, I didn't really know the other person, and I kind of just got into a relationship with them, which I don't know how it happens. It just happens. But because of that, I dealt with a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have dealt with, that I could have prevented just by not getting that close to someone.
Yeah.
Because obviously, at one point, when you become really close to someone, you're willing to go through anything, like anything for them. But when do you step back, and when do you say, hey, maybe this isn't that good?
Yeah.
Or maybe this isn't a good idea for me. It took me 3 years to be like, I might not need this in my life right now, and I'm going to walk away from this. If I had known that person prior, maybe I wouldn't even have gotten into that relationship. Maybe they wouldn't even have impacted me. That's where like advice that my friends gave, or advice that my mom gave, or advice that people who knew about the relationship gave me would have come in handy. I completely shut that out. I was like, no, I want this relationship with this person. I'm going to marry this person, and no one can tell me otherwise. Which was wrong, because clearly I didn't end up marrying that person, and they just ended up affecting me in a really bad way. Yes, they made me grow. Yes, they left lessons to be learned. Yes, I'm a little bitter about that, and I don't really like it, because I was a better person before that person, and I feel like I'll never be that person again. There's a part of me that will always hold people accountable a lot more than I did before. And I don't like that. I used to like to be able to forgive people and just move on with my life. But now it's like, hey, if you've done me wrong so many times, maybe you might be an asshole, and I'm going to have to tell you to kind of like screw off.
And the reason, honestly, why we go through these things at such a young age is because of media. It romanticizes the idea of being in love with a person.
It romanticizes the weirdest thing. It romanticizes someone writing a letter to your house and knowing your address without you giving it out, or calling your phone at your home phone number, bro. Nobody even has those.
Which is why, like, the show You, especially, like, I mean, I get it, like, okay, it's a creepy thing the guy's doing, but take in that so many young girls who see that show will actually be like, that's attractive. For somebody to care that much about me is attractive.
That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, if you go under the comments on Twitter, that's all you see. Girls are just like, oh, he's so good looking. Oh, he just loves her a lot. Bro,
no,
that is not love.
That is romanticization of something that is not real. It shouldn't be real.
There are boundaries.
Right. It's a toxic situation for you to get yourself in. But maybe
it's just an exaggeration. Yeah. It's basically it's like stalking someone on a social media account and finding out everything that they do, or where they eat, or what they're doing at every single living moment. Yeah. It's kind of like that, but they've kind of just exaggerated.
They've upped it. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're like, this is the next step.
And before, shows like You were fan fictions. Exactly. Right? And it was always about like some abusive boyfriend who was just extremely hot, and he was hitting on the shy girl, and she didn't know what love was, so she went along with it. And so that's where like, see, like, our idea of a relationship comes from the environment that we're in. What are we taking in? What are we absorbing from the people around us, from the media around us?
There's always an argument about, which is an interesting topic, about how media doesn't really affect us. It does.
It does. Oh, for sure.
Just because we put it on a face and we're like, it doesn't affect us, it doesn't mean it doesn't.
In sociology, I learned that we are a creation of our environment, and it's the truest thing. Our mind is a vessel. It absorbs whatever is around us, and subconsciously, consciously we might be like, it doesn't affect me. Subconsciously, our brain is taking it all in and being like, oh, you're about to get fucked up.
I read something where it was like, the first thing, like, how you react to the how you react to the moment. The first thing you do is how you were conditioned to do it. Yeah. And the second thing you do is how you have been raised to do it. Right. Which is interesting to think about. Like, you don't really think about these things until you're in the moment, and you kind of go back and you reflect on a moment where you did something and you're like, out of instinct, you reacted a certain way, and you step back and you're like, wait, that's not what I want to do. I want to do a different thing. Yeah. And that's when you really have to look into yourself and be like, who do I want to be? Yeah. And you need to be able to have that conversation with yourself, because the biggest thing about having these conversations with yourself is the fear. Yeah. You don't, like, I wouldn't want to sit here and expose myself, right? I wouldn't want to be like, this is what's wrong with me, and this is the way my mind works, and this is how it is. But at the same time, I need to be able to have that conversation to be able to grow. Yeah.
I 100% agree. Actually, I think that's a really good place to end off, to realize that when we have these conversations, we are calling for healing.
Exactly.
You know, when we open up and we say that we can see what's wrong, you know, we're calling for that potential. We're calling to reach that potential of us that is better than the person that we are now.
Exactly. And it's always a safe space.
Right.
You don't want to do it in a harmful environment because the impact of that will not help you.
Yeah.
So it goes back to your relationship.
Yeah.
You need to be with someone. Okay, you end off with a quote.
No,
So
keep going. Okay. This is good.
So you want to be in a relationship with someone that is able to help you achieve what you want to achieve in life.
Yeah.
Without you having to deal with the negatives of it.
Right. Which is why I'm grateful for this space. I'm grateful for the conversations that you and I can have with each other.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that, you know, this is a space for me to be able to come together with one of my closest friends and talk and grow and heal together.
I regret that we didn't do this sooner.
I know,
and helped me a lot in my past relationship.
There is so much more to come. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end off here with a quote from David Feldman on Twitter. This is actually like a marriage counselor, and I saw this quote and it really spoke to me. And it is, your relationship isn't about fulfilling your dreams together, because dreams come and go, some achieved, some never even started. It's about having a loving, caring, committed partner, soulmate, who is with you 100% along your journey together forever. And that soulmate doesn't have to be intimate. That soulmate could be literally the person that you can open up to. It's that platonic friendship that is just there for you whenever you need it.
Yeah. You don't need a boyfriend to be able to give you that feeling.
Yeah.
Or you don't need a husband to be able to give you that feeling. And it doesn't matter where you get it from.
Mm-hmm.
It just matters that you got it.
Yeah. You got that support.
And you can always find that here.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in, guys. This has been an episode of Two Girls, One Mic. Yeah. And we're so glad you guys were able to tune in and listen to this.
We'll see you guys next week with a different topic.
Peace.
Bye.